Hello, wonderful earth science kids. Mr. Johansson's. I'm going to talk soil, right? A lot of us just walk on it. We don't even think about it. Soil, it's just some dirt, right? We don't recognize that it is the reason for our national strength. Really? Soil? Dirt? Um, yeah, dirt. Dirt and water are what you use to grow food. And without food, do you really have any strength at all? No. So soil turns out to be far more important than most people would ever imagine. Soil is a mixture of weathered rock and organic material that usually covers bedrock. Notice as you walk around, it's very rare that you find a lot of rocks, but it's very rare that you find bedrock. That would be rock that is just attached to the solid earth. Most everything is covered with soil, second only to water in its importance as a basic resource. So the type of soil depends mostly on the climate. It doesn't depend tremendously on the type of rock that broke down to turn into the soil. It's much more dependent on climate. Both physical and chemical weathering break the rocks apart and turn them into soil. So physical weathering busts it into small pieces. Chemical weathering now, chemical weathering takes those small pieces and it actually adjusts the way these things chemically are. Some of those chemicals in the rock are needed by plants, but the plants can't get them from the rock. They have to chemically weather out of the rock, and then they're available as nutrients for the plants. So, to have a good soil, it has to have a lot of living stuff in it. When you pick up a handful of topsoil, there's estimates that on the order of 50%, half of the weight of that soil you've picked up is actually living materials. Most of it bacteria, but tons of microscopic worms and all sorts of different organisms. All sorts of different organisms. There's so many different things living there. The animals, especially the earthworms. Earthworms are tremendously important in keeping soils healthy. They burrow and mix the soil. They aerate the soil. They allow water to easily percolate into the soil. Organic remains decaying produce acids, which accelerate that chemical weathering. So we have soil horizons. 3 layers is generally the idea here. The first layers, we'd call it topsoil. Dark organic material, water, air, lots of living organisms. Some of the minerals have been leached, removed by dissolving, and carried deeper. Horizon B is where some of those minerals got to. Some of those minerals are iron. That's why it's reddish. Very poor in organic materials. Not a lot of living creatures there, but there's a lot of minerals that were leached out of Horizon A that the plants need. Horizon C, that's the bedrock in various stages of breaking up and turning into smaller and smaller rocks. So Horizon C is the broken up bedrock. So this would be an example of what a typical soil would look like. Okay, if you look at the top, the A horizon, most of the organic material, highest percentage of the most extremely weathered stuff. It's wonderful for growing plants. The B horizon has the minerals that were leached out of the A horizon. And it also would start having little pebbles and stuff like that in it that are weathering down to finish up producing soil. You can imagine if you look at this, soils get thicker over time. Okay, but over a very long period of time. B horizon, generally reddish, lots of clay, stuff like that. The C horizon. The C horizon is just the partially weathered bedrock. So you can kind of see if you look over here. All right, on the very top you have the surface litter. That's the organic stuff actually breaking down to form the soil. Under that you have the topsoil, organic matter, living organisms, not many rock particles, but a few. Then we have the zone of leaching, dissolved or suspended materials. Those are always moving downward. Okay. Below that, you have the subsoil, larger rock particles with organic matter, inorganic compounds, clay leached down from above, stuff like that. And then you have the rock particles, right? The rock that is being broken off the bedrock slowly, very, very slowly. The bedrock is being fractured into these little rocks. And below everything, then you should have bedrock. Yeah. Soil horizons you can use to figure out the history of a region. It takes thousands of years to develop a complete set of soil horizons. So in New York State, the sea horizon is usually missing. Glaciers have removed all the soil. The leftover soils have only had about 10,000 years to form horizons. In that short amount of time, the bedrock has not had time to weather to form the sea horizon. What we have in New York State is glacier garbage on top of pretty much everything. So that garbage is taking a long time to weather and really change into all the horizons. We usually have a pretty good A horizon, a pretty good topsoil. Look at all the farms in Sullivan County. We raise tremendously healthy crops. Our A horizon is excellent. The B horizon is well in development, but the C horizon is largely had not had any time to develop. Ions. Why do we care about ions? Well, as the water is passing through the soil, it picks up ions that have weathered out of the minerals. And what is an ion? It's just an atom that has lost or gained an electron, so it has an electrical charge. The thing about it is the ions are used by plants for nutrients. So that's why they're really important. The most important ions are typically potassium, nitrogen, calcium, iron, and phosphate. If you buy fertilizer, a lot of those things are in the fertilizer. Nitrogen is very hard to get into the soil, so if it's not being brought in by a fertilizer, you use special plants that have these plants are called legumes. They don't do it themselves. Only bacteria have the juice to figure out how to get nitrogen out of the air and put it into the soil. It's a challenging thing. Plants haven't figured it out yet. What they've done is form little cavities and they host the nitrogen fixing bacteria. The legumes host the nitrogen fixing bacteria. Pretty cool. So, two ways to classify soil other than the horizons. Residual soil. Here we have bedrock that over great amounts of time has just broken down and formed the soil that you have above it. Or you can have transported soil, soil where everything was moved away and new soil was dumped. So what do we have in New York State? Well, we were glaciated, so we have transported soil. So quick review. Soil, composed of rocks, minerals, and organic matter. Sand and clay make up the bulk of soil. Minerals and organic matter supply it with nutrients. Residual soil, soil that formed in place by the weathering of bedrock transported, formed from rocks that were transported from somewhere else. Soil horizons. As soils develop, they become layered. The layers are called horizons. So layer A, topsoil, organic. Layer B, subsoil, reddish, leached materials. C, fragmented and weathered bedrock. And that's that. Well, hope that helps. Remember, soil, it's not just stuff you walk on. It really is what we're mostly made of, isn't it? How interesting. Soil, not just dirt.